Has no fangs and venom, it changes its diet. If you take away the wattle from the white bellbird, then well, you get the idea. But what about bees? Bees are known for having a stinger. If you suddenly take it away from a bee, it simply wouldn't be able to survive. But vulture bees gradually gave up their stinger, and that's what happened to them. At first glance, vulture bees are not much different from ordinary bees. I mean, their bodies look similar: eyes, legs, wings. Vulture bees also live in colonies, produce honey, and eat meat. No kidding. Bees eat meat. Vulture bees never touch buds or blossoms. Instead, they get sugar from the fruits and nectaries of some plants. As for protein, they get it from the rotting meat that bees carry into their hive. Although that sounds like a very, very bad idea. Just think about it. Usually insects try to get rid of their dead to avoid causing a pandemic in the hive, and here we have rotting meat. But vulture bees have their secrets. They treat the meat in a special way, then store it in small pot-like containers. Can we say they cook it in a special way? Well, researchers have different opinions on that, but essentially bees store meat until it's time to feed the larva. Yes, as I said, vulture bees are in many ways similar to their vegetarian relatives in the way they look, honey that they make, and their colony size. There is a clear hierarchy in their hives, which includes the queen bee, drones, worker bees, and the young bees they take care of. Everyone in the colony has a certain job to do. A typical bee organization. Like other bee species that live in hives, vulture bees sometimes find their home overcrowded. Then the new queen seizes power, and the old one gathers followers and moves to another place. That is quite a regular bee behavior. But to switch to a meat diet, these bees simply had to change. You can't live your whole life collecting nectar and one day develop an appetite for, a steak? This requires some evolutionary mechanisms, and it looks like the bees have decided to give up the stinger. Perhaps they had to sacrifice it to get something like jaws. Also, the vulture bees have a special tooth. Some sources even say several of them, and they help bite flesh. I see what you're thinking. It's not enough to eat food like that, you also need to digest it somehow. And when it comes to rotting meat, few creatures can do it, but we'll get back to that a bit later. After all, the bees also need to somehow carry the meat to the hive. Most bees have basket-like structures on their hind legs. Usually bees carry pollen in them, but vulture bees use a smaller basket of a slightly different structure to carry meat from the carcass to the hive. That is, these insects literally change the structure of their legs to make it more convenient to handle meat. That's what I call a change of profession. But how do they digest rotten meat? Most creatures who decide to eat something like this risk getting food poisoning. That's the best case scenario. The reason lies in corpses that are full of microbes locked in a territorial battle, which results in producing a lot of toxins. Deadly toxins. However, vulture bees have evolved a unique community of microorganisms in their tiny guts, that is the microbiome. When scientists examined these unusual insects, they found that vulture bees are full of acid-loving bacteria. These bacteria are similar to those found in feathered vultures, hyenas, and other carrion-eating animals. One of the bacteria found in vulture bees is lactobacillus, which is common for many fermented foods, well, like sourdough. The microbiome also contains carnobacterium, associated with flesh digestion. In short, these bees have everything they need to eat corpses. To be honest, I'm starting to feel quite uneasy. Gotta ask Steve to find out if these bees can attack humans. In the meantime, let's talk about the stinger. Vulture bees abandoned the main bee weapon. Did it make them stronger? The bee's stinger evolved originally for combat between bees of different hives. The barbs evolved later as an anti-mammal defense. In one of my previous videos, I mentioned that the bee stinger gets stuck when it penetrates, say, the human body, all because of these barbs. At the same time, it can penetrate the chitinous plates of another bee's exoskeleton and retract safely. But the stinger's not designed only to pierce the enemy or its victim. It's also used to inject apoptoxin, the bee venom, into the victim, which is accompanied by the release of alarm pheromones. Releasing these pheromones near the hive or just next to other bees can attract them like an SOS signal. Can you imagine how other bees would react in such a situation? Of course they'll exhibit defensive behavior, which in bee language means attack the enemy until he flees or dies. The pheromones don't dissipate nor wash off quickly, and if a target gets into the water, the bees will resume their attack as soon as the target is back on the surface. Well, it seems like a stinger has many benefits, except perhaps for the fact that bees that sting mammals are doomed. But other than that, it's really useful. I don't know what the downsides could be here. So vulture bees can't sting their enemies, but that doesn't make them harmless. I don't know how a creature that eats meat can be called harmless, especially since vulture bees can bite. Yeah, just like lions or crocodiles. I'll give you a few seconds to imagine a bee with a crocodile head. So some bee species can even bite humans. Despite the lack of a stinger, vulture bees put their jaws and special teeth to good use. And when I say good use, I mean the bites are really painful. Special secretions on the jaws of the bees cause blisters on the skin. These blisters turn into painful sores, so ew. But you know what surprised me more than biting meat-eating bees? All bees used to be carnivorous. Scientists say that about 100 or 120 million years ago, the common ancestor of all modern bees was carnivorous. It's believed it was a predatory wasp from the Crabradonidae family. It attacked other insects, stung them, and carried their carcasses to its offspring. But as time passed, something happened. And over the past 80 million years, the bees have become devoted vegetarians. Of all the bee species, only 3 now prefer meat. How come the ancestors of modern bees changed their diet? Quite an interesting question. I've already said, when you're an insect, you can't simply decide you're beginning a new life starting today. Scientists have theories how that happened. My favorite one says the ancient wasps diligently hunted insects and brought them to their larvae. But these insects were all covered in pollen because, well, that's what they ate. This went on for a very, very long time, and finally the larvae, apparently, well, grew to like it. Imagine these larvae telling their parents they'll only eat pollen from now on. A teenage rebellion from the Mesozoic era. But so far, scientists aren't 100% certain about what happened millions of years ago, but they have strange, really strange facts. How do you like wasps that ate dinosaurs? Well, something like that. Back in 2011, scientists examined several titanosaur eggs about 70 million years old. Titanosaurs are these big fellas. Their eggs were also large, and scientists discovered something weird in one of them: 8 tiny structures shaped like sausages? Steve! Sausages and dinosaurs? Really? Well, these sausages turned out to be fossilized cocoons of ancient insects, which look a lot like the cocoons of modern wasps. The researchers suggested the ancient egg cracked open, the smell attracted scavengers like some kind of crickets, and then the crickets attracted wasps. After eating, they spun their cocoons inside a rotting egg. However, who knows? Maybe the wasps were the first to appear near the egg. Maybe they ate a baby dinosaur. Or maybe they cracked open the egg. All right, this sounds insane. Though I suddenly realized that I haven't addressed the most important question yet. If vulture bees make honey from meat, what does it taste like? To be honest, I haven't tried it yet, but those who have describe it as a dark, thick, very sticky substance rich in protein. Unlike common bees, vultures don't produce excess honey. That is, they make exactly as much as they need. So consider yourself lucky if you got to try it. The taste of this rare honey is described as intense, smoky, salty, or simply sweet. I have no idea what that means. At the same time, it's considered not as sweet as sugar. Actually, for people, it can be something of a delicacy. A unique delicacy.
Oh, God, it's so good. So good. So good and tasty.
What about safety? Can we actually eat this honey, or is it a terrible poison that can kill anyone who's, well, not a bee? After all these bacteria in the dead bodies are no joke. Well, judging by the information I came across, the honey of vulture bees contains no substances potentially dangerous to humans. That's a great food. Unlike other honey, which seems to be completely ordinary, except for one small detail. It's radioactive. Scientists testing batches of American honey were surprised to discover traces of nuclear tests conducted in the 1950s and 1960s. More precisely, it was an isotope of cesium-137, and its concentration in some samples was 100 times higher than in other foods. Don't panic yet, this is not a health risk. The researchers stress that the amount of cesium-137 found in American honey is well below what is considered harmful. For reference, the most radioactive honey tested during the study came from Florida and contained 19.1 becquerels per kilogram. At the same time, the cutoff for food safety is at 1,200 becquerels per kilogram. You get it, right? You need to eat a lot of honey to get any negative consequences. Of course, radioactive honey isn't harmful to bees either. Seems like these amazing insects decided not to stop there. Rotting meat, honey containing cesium-137, they started eating human tears. In the next video, we'll continue to study the diet of bees and something else. See you later. About 30 million years ago, an arid climate turned part of America into a desert. 5 to 10 million years later, cacti began to actively spread all around the place. This is what they looked like at that time. Yes, no spines. It's quite difficult to recognize this weird plant as a cactus, but give it a little more time and the cactus will look like the one we're used to. Not only has it become easier for cacti to survive in arid spots without leaves, some of the herbivores have also lost their food source. But as we know, when one creature improves its defense, another one levels up its attack. Now imagine the only food left on Earth is cacti. There's nothing else, like it all. What are you gonna do? This goddamn cactus! How do I eat you? Yeah, it'll take years of evolution to adapt to such a diet. But there are animals that have already done that. The camels. They seem to be designed to survive in the desert, which means they can feed on whatever grows there. When you're an herbivore, you can't really be picky, and any plants will do, including camel thorns and cacti. Yes, camels do eat them. They swallow them entirely right along with the spines. And that doesn't bother them. But why? If you stumbled across a cactus at least once, you know that any contact with its spines is as nasty as it gets. Even a few thorns stuck into the skin is very painful, but here we're talking about mucosa. To understand how it works, you have to look into the camel's mouth. I warn you right away, this might get weird. First, the camel has very tough lips, but this is just the beginning. The entire inner part of the camel's mouth is lined with unusual structures called papillae. Palate, cheeks, tongue, everything is covered with these hard formations. They're partly made of keratin, the same hard stuff your nails are made of, and it helps camels chew things that aren't supposed to be chewed at all. Also, the papillae move the spines down the pharynx. This way, the sharp ends do not pierce the camel when it swallows them. Oh, by the way, apparently even having the opportunity to eat something else, camels still don't mind eating a cactus. Looks like they just like it.
Oh, God, it's so good. So good and tasty.
Well, you know how some people love food that's too spicy even if it hurts them? Are you already convinced camels are much cooler than you used to think? Wait, that's not all. The wild Bactrian camel that lives in China and Mongolia has evolved so much it has learned to drink salt water. To be honest, I don't know a single animal capable of something like that. But it still wasn't enough for the camel, and he learned to withstand high levels of radiation. The thing is, nuclear tests were once carried out in the habitat of this species, and you know what? Camels just don't care. Maybe they'd start eating warheads if they found them. But let's leave the camels for now and address another important question. Why do animals eat something that looks little like food anyway? Well, sometimes they just don't have a choice. If you live in a remote region with an unpleasant climate, you can't be a picky eater. Either you eat some nasty-looking thorn or you die in a heroic manner. Usually, animals prefer to adapt. Another reason is the need to adapt to evolutionary changes. Plants are not happy when they get eaten. So they do all it takes to prevent this from happening. They grow thorns or become poisonous. In response, herbivores have to adapt and also evolve. Then predators join in. In short, you get the idea. So camels probably did not start to eat cacti right away. Scientists still have not fully figured out their evolutionary journey, but it seems like it began in a classical way with soft, juicy leaves. Then the ancestors of camels switched to a mixed diet and finally began to adapt to the lack of water. Perhaps this happened after the migration to Africa when they first saw cacti. But there is another reason why animals start a weird diet, and that is lack of rivals. Imagine that you constantly have to struggle to get a favorite snack in the mall in time. Everyone, damn day. No wonder you may get bored and think, maybe I should get something else. What's the point of constantly arguing with other customers over a chocolate bar when there are always crackers that no one eats? The bearded vulture must have thought so too. Like other scavengers, it feeds mainly on the remains of dead animals. But while its closest kin is hunting for meat, the bearded vulture goes for bones. That is literally. It usually ignores regular meat and lives on a diet that is 85 to 90% bone marrow. To get to the bone marrow, it has to eat bones. But the bearded vulture has no problem with that. Its stomach can digest any bone in just 24 hours. By the way, no other animal can feed on bones. You see what I'm getting at? The bearded vultures even figured out how to deal with large bones to save energy. They lift the prey into the air and then drop it on stones, breaking it into small pieces. That's it. Dinner is served. Actually, this is a common technique. Sometimes bearded vultures want to eat a turtle, and they also drop it from a great height so that they can crack open the shell. Good news, this method really works. Bad news, once a bird dropped a turtle from a great height right onto the ancient Greek playwright Aeschylus, mistaking his bald head for a stone. These birds just have no rival species, especially after they've taken care of Aeschylus. Okay, that was a bad one. So bearded vultures have no competition in the animal kingdom, and bones have no expiration date, unlike meat, which spoils too quickly. The entire area where the bearded vultures live is like a huge pantry where they can grab a delicious bone at any time. Also, animals keep getting born and dying, which means an endless supply of bones. Not bad, huh? Lions have to spend their whole life fighting for prey, putting a lot of effort in fighting off hyenas. The bearded vulture just needs to take off and look down below. I wonder if bones somehow affect the health of the birds. Like, they ate calcium and their skeleton became as strong as Wolverine's without any adamantium. Or if they gained strength and speed like Asterix after a magic potion. Or... Okay, that doesn't work like that. But your diet can easily make you poisonous. Common box turtles are too slow to be choosy eaters, so they eat everything, including mushrooms, which are poisonous to humans. According to the book by C. Kenneth Dodd, it simply becomes dangerous to eat such turtles. There are even recorded cases when hungry people ate common box turtles, and it was later revealed the latter ate toadstools. Oops. But one more important question remains. How do animals understand what is edible and what is not? And whether they understand it at all, do they have some kind of list passed down from generation to generation? Well, it's both yes and no. Of course, not a single camel keeps a list of edible cacti inherited from their grandmother, but many creatures rely on their instincts and experience to determine what is edible. For example, herbivores in the wild eat some plants and ignore others. They learn from the experiences of their parents, and so do predators. It doesn't work with pets, though. There's hardly any genetic memory that makes dogs chew on the TV remote, boots, or socks.
You like that sock over there? Is it yummy? Is it yummy?
There is zero sense in eating that. I doubt this dog was lacking socks in his body. Parrots are a different story. They know exactly why they eat soil. Wait, soil? Yeah. Many species of South American parrots lick or even swallow clay, and this is completely okay. For them, of course. Some of the birds get calcium and sodium this way, others an antidote for toxic seeds. So maybe we should all try some soil from time to time if it's so healthy. Well, let's rather not. Eating soil is risky because you can run into parasites like roundworms, get tetanus, damaged tooth enamel, get digestive issues, or generally eat something bad. Too big a risk for the mere piece of clay. Let's leave it to the parrots. They know exactly what they're doing.
I just want to eat.
Which cannot be said about plastic-eating plankton. Today, tons of garbage float in the world's oceans, and it inevitably interferes with the food chain. Plastic is absorbed by copepods, small crustaceans. In the video, you can see plankton eating microscopic granules of polystyrene, these tiny green things. These granules could be used for making disposable tableware. Usually, copepods feed on certain types of algae and, using chemical receptors, distinguish between what they can eat and what not. But it looks like their aim is a little off. Does plastic harm plankton? Well, it certainly doesn't do it any good. It's like a hamburger from a nearby diner. If you eat it, you won't feel hungry for a long time, but your body won't appreciate it. And if you're on a permanent burger diet, or in the case of plankton, plastic diet, then you can have health issues.
Well, if you like burgers, give them a try sometime.
Plankton can't complain though. At least it knows how to get rid of the plastic it consumes. Most animals don't have this ability. The result is sad and predictable. Here I probably need to say something about ecology, garbage recycling, and other important things, but you already know that, right? See you later.